Welcome, dear students, to this class on the prologue to the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. So, as you have understood, the history of English literature is broadly classified into three main periods, right? The ancient or the Old English period, the Middle English period, and the modern period. The Middle English period is again classified into two. You can say that the first half, which is called the Norman period, and the second half is called the period of Chaucer or the age of Chaucer, where you find the writers like William Langland, John Gower, and of course Geoffrey Chaucer. So, coming to Geoffrey Chaucer, he's called the father of English poetry, a phrase that makes him sound like a stuffy sort of writer. He's called the father of English poetry. He wrote in vernacular. He chose to write in English language. When at a time when writers like John Gower and others, they resorted to write in French or in Latin. The Latin language was the language of the clergy, and the aristocracy, they used French. And English was looked down upon, and only the peasants or the serfs used English at that point of time. But Chaucer, he chose to write in English language at that point. Chaucer's masterpiece, this Canterbury Tales, is of course in English language, where he uses realistic language and coarse humor. And we get to know that he is an observant of minute details, a man of the world, who knew people of different kind, different varieties of people, who spoke and acted in various ways. And this knowledge was invaluable to his writing, especially when he wrote this prologue. We find characters from all the walks of, at that point of time. It's actually a cross section of London, of England of that time. Coming to his background, he was born in London into a middle class family, a merchant's family, you can say, and he carried out different jobs, and he was exposed to the world of fine manners and also high-born people. And a few years later, he saw more of the world when he was in the military. He served in the campaign, in the war with France, and while in his 20s, he became a court official. And during his career, he traveled abroad. He went to Italy, he went to France. And French and Italian literature influenced his writing. And you can say that his literary period is also classified into three: English period, French period, and Italian period. Italian period, where he was influenced by Italian masters like Boccaccio. The French period, when he imitated French literature, he imitated and he translated many French romances at that point of time. And he was coming to the writings. He is famous for the Book of the Duchess, this romance, French romance, then the Parliament of Fowls, Royalism Crusade, the Legend of Good Women, and of course the Canterbury Tales, the masterpiece, which is considered as a masterpiece for various reasons. One, as I told you, it was written in English language. He was the first writer to use English in major literary work, and before them, French and Latin languages were used. And secondly, this prologue and the Canterbury Tales, they focus on an assortment of people who are thrown together on a journey. It gives a lifelike and engaging picture of a cross section of society during the 1300s. You find people from all walks of life. You can broadly classify them into three. The clergy, aristocracy, and the commoners. So we find representation from all these three sections of the society of that time. And he created approximately around 17,000 lines of vivid poetry, which still attract new readers centuries later. This is about his birth and death, and he was buried in Westminster Abbey. And coming to this Canterbury Tales, it's actually tales told by 29 pilgrims. It was a time where when the world was, especially London at that England, because that's the setting that we find in this work. Plague was there, poverty, infant mortality rate was there, and people, especially the lives of common people, they lived in harsh conditions, and they looked forward for a happier life after death. So they wanted to pray and go for pilgrimages for financial blessings, for healing from certain diseases. This and some for the sake of going for a pilgrimage for fun, they went to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket every spring season, every year in the month of April, towards this shrine. And once Chaucer met 29 pilgrims at a particular inn called Stubbard Inn at Southwark, and together with those 29 pilgrims, Chaucer and the host of that inn, they continue their journey towards the shrine of St. Thomas Becket. And on the way and during the return, each pilgrim, they are supposed to say 2 stories each, and the best storyteller's supper would be provided by the others. And that was the deal kept by the host, Harry Bailey. And we are introduced to all the 29 characters, all the 29 pilgrims in the prologue. Chaucer's pilgrims are all well-developed characters, with personalities and pasts. As one critic said, and not a whisper, not a word is omitted. Their bodily features, minute description is given. We get to know the real characters. And coming to the system at that point of time, we find the feudal system where you have knight, squire, yeoman, franklin, plowman. They are all part of this prologue. The pilgrims' occupations reflect different aspects of 14th century society. Then the religious, as I have told you, clergy, nun, monk, friar, cleric, parson, summoner, and pardoner. They come under the session of the society. And we have trades of people like merchant, a sergeant at a law, tradesman, cook, and so on, a wife of bath, a manciple, a doctor, and so on. So we get a cross section of 14th century England. It's actually a social portrait. The Canterbury Tales uses a frame tale. There is a story of pilgrimage, in order to tell another stories. It's about this pilgrimage, a trip made to a holy place for religious reasons or just for fun or for adventure. And that plot is used to tell other tales. We have the knight's tale, wife of bath's tale, nun's tale, and so on. So that is actually about the Canterbury Tales. And what we are supposed to learn is the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, where Chaucer explains the purpose of the journey, the season, the setting, and we are introduced to the characters, various pilgrims going for this journey. Chaucer spoke in Middle English, which is very much different from the English that we use today. The result of mixing Old English of the Anglo-Saxons with the Old French of the Normans. The grammar and the vocabulary might seem the same, but certain pronunciations are very much different. When we hear this reading of Canterbury Tales, the prologue, you'll get to know. For example, this particular certain syllables are differently pronounced during the medieval period. The prologue's opening lines, we'll listen to this narration.
one that April with his shore sorter, the drocht of March, hath pierced to the road, and bathed every vine in sweet liquor, of which virtue engendered is the flower. One Zephyrus egg with his sweeter breath, in spirit hath in every heart and head, the tender croppes, and the young son hath in the ram his half course iron.
So, it is very much different from the English that we use, right? So, right from the beginning, we get to know the season. It is April season when the flowers are the air is fragrant with different sweet smelling flowers. There is this showers happening, April showers, and the smell of the fresh fragrant flowers. When April with its sweet smelling showers, smelling sweet because of the fragrant flowers that bloomed during the spring season, has pierced the drought of March to the root. The roots are all very dry because of the winter season, and the showers, these sweet smelling showers has reached, pierced to the roots of the dry roots, and bathed every vein of plants. The vein, the sap becomes, it was dry during the winter season. Now it has been plumbed up. It bathed this sweet smelling showers has reached the vein, the sap of the plants, by which power the flower is created, and then the plant is rejuvenated, and you have flowers, beautiful flowers coming, by which flower by which power the flower is created. And when the west wind, that is the cypress, or the west wind also with its sweet breath, this west wind is blowing, and in every wood and field has breathed life into it. It was as if, during the time of creation, God Almighty Creator breathed life into the nostrils of man. Likewise, this west wind appears. Shastra compares this west wind to that breath, which gave life to the human beings. Likewise, the west wind has breathed life into every woods and forest and fields. The tender new leaves and the young sun came up. During the winter season there was no sun, and the sun has run half its course in earth, has moved halfway, and small fowls make melody. Small birds, fowls, they make melody.
And smaller fowls making melody that sleeping out the night.
So how it is pronounced? Did you listen? The small fowls making melody. It is very much different from what we hear.
So pricketh him nature in here courageous, than longing folk to go on pilgrimages. And Thomas for the second strongest strundes to fain howes, couth in sundry Londis.
Alright, so the small birds, they make songs, they sing songs. Those that sleep all night with open eyes, the birds, which sleep with open eyes, and now they are all making noises, songs, melody, sweet melody. So nature incites them in their hearts, they then folk. So because the season is a season of rejuvenation, physically the world is getting rejuvenated, and spiritually the minds of people are also supposed to be rejuvenated at this point of time. And for that, the professional pilgrims, they seek foreign lands or foreign shores. They choose certain places, lands, to go for pilgrimages to distant shrines, to distant temples known in various lands. And here the reference is to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, and especially from every shire's end, from every town they gather together. They come to England to travel to Canterbury. So they want to travel to Canterbury to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, who was murdered at the altar. And this place serves as a place of pilgrimage, and to seek the holy blessed martyr. So this was who was martyred. St. Thomas Becket was martyred by 3 knights in that church, and to seek the holy blessings of this martyr in order to help them when they were sick, for financial blessings, for healing from sick. They came to the shrine to get the blessing of the holy holy martyr.
And specially from every sheerest end of England to Canterbury thy wind, the holy blissful martyr for to sake, that him hath holpen when that thy was sake.
It happened that in that season, on one day in Southwark at the Tabard Inn, as I lay ready to go on my pilgrimage, and Chaucer was ready to go for the pilgrimage, and he was resting in the Tabard Inn in Southwark, and it happened that he met other pilgrims as well, around 29 pilgrims. They came to go to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket and to Canterbury with a very devout spirit, and at night had come into that hostelry, 9 and 20 in company, and that is 29 pilgrims at that during that night. 29 pilgrims, they came to take rest there, of various sorts of people, by chance fallen in fellowship. By chance they came together. They were all from different fields, and they were all pilgrims, and on one accord they came together in fellowship, who intended to ride towards Canterbury. The bedrooms and the stables were all spacious, about that inn, and we were all well accommodated in the best way. And shortly, when the sun was to rest, and in brief, when the sun was gone to rest, sunset, I had so spoken with every one of them. So Chaucer met all those pilgrims that I was of their fellowship straightway. He also became one among them. He had a very good fellowship with them and made agreement to rise early. And so they all decided that they will rise early in the morning to take their way to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, to take away where I will tell you. And then on the way they have this time, and they will tell tales to each other. But nonetheless, while I have the time and opportunity, before I proceed further in this tale, he makes a description on all the 29 pilgrims. So this is the first part of the prologue, which you have to learn. That is about the setting and about the meeting of these 29 pilgrims in the inn called Tabard Inn in Southwark. Did you understand? I hope the poem is clear to you. We'll read once again. When April with its sweet smelling showers has pierced the drought of March to the root, and bathed every vein of plants in such liquid by which power the flower is created, when the west wind also with its sweet breath in every wood and field has breathed life into the tender new leaves, and the young sun has run half its course in iris, and small fowls make melody, those that sleep all the night with open eyes. So nature incites them in their hearts. Then folk long to go on pilgrimages, and professional pilgrims to seek foreign shores, to distant shrines, known in various lands, and especially from every shire's end of England to Canterbury they travel, to seek the holy blessed martyr who helped them when they were sick. It happened that in that season, on one day in Southwark at the Tabard Inn, as I lay ready to go on my pilgrimage to Canterbury with a very devout spirit, at night had come into that hostelry, 9 and 20 in a company of various sorts of people, by chance fallen in a fellowship, and they were all pilgrims who intended to ride toward Canterbury. The bedrooms and the stables were spacious, and we were well accommodated in the best way. And in brief, when the sun was gone to rest, I had so spoken with every one of them that I was of their fellowship straightway, and made agreement to rise early to take our way where I will tell you. Thank you.